The left now wants you to believe that this flag, and it's completely incorrect, we'll get into the history, represents slavery. The claim is that this flag is intrinsically tied to the Confederacy, Southern slave states. Let me just give you some examples of these headlines. All the references are available at louderwithcrowder.com, so you can read them for yourself. Don't take my word for it. Washington Post. The disgraced Confederate history of the Don't Tread on Me flag. The Gadsden flag was not the official flag of the Confederacy, as the Alabama Beacon called it, but several newspapers described it in those terms. Yeah,
what?
You did! You! It was you who described it in those terms.
You just destroyed your own argument. It's not.
It is not a flag of the Confederacy, but we said that once.
Asshole.
Several of us said that.
Yeah, and just keep in mind, I know some of you are new here. When people say, "Oh, Occupy Wall Street was the first," no, the Tea Party existed as soon as Barack Obama became president, and this was the emblem. This was the symbol of the Tea Party, by the way.
Yeah,
and. You know who rose up during a lot of black conservative activists. Alfonso Rachel. I owe a huge debt of gratitude for my career. I was just a stand-up comic and actor until he brought me into a place called PJTV at that point. I believe Tim Scott came up with some support from the Tea Party at one point or was active. Michelle Malkin was back in the day. Herman Cain. So these guys were out there, I guess, waving the slavery flag. That's the claim they want you to believe. Here's the truth. And Gerald, you're a history buff.
I am a little bit of a history buff. It's actually tied to civil liberties with the origin in the Revolutionary War. Civil liberties. I did a little bit of a Joe Biden there. Yeah. So let me just give you a quick background.
Let's go to 1775.
We'll go to 1775. It was created by Colonel Christopher Gadsden of South Carolina. He was a newly created Marine Corps, displayed this on the drums. It was also flown by Essex Hopkins, the first naval commander-in-chief of the United States Navy, right? So the rattlesnake, it was kind of used as a symbol for Great Britain. So what was happening is that Great Britain was sending over prisoners. Does it sound like Australia to anybody else?
Ooh.
It was basically being used as a penal colony. We passed some laws in the states that said you couldn't do that. They did that for about, 40 or 50 years. They said, okay. Then they came back and started shipping prisoners back over, and they were starting to commit crimes at a really high rate. Sanctuary cities as well. This seems like a very familiar pattern to history. And what they said is, hey, we have...
When you say they, you mean...
They, meaning Great Britain.
Great Britain, yeah. I just want to be clear.
The colonies, basically just to piss off the colonies. And they said, you know what we have a lot of here? Rattlesnakes. They don't have those in Great Britain. Maybe we should send those over to Great Britain and put them in the gardens where the prime minister and all the lords and everybody else walks, and they'll learn to kind of tread lightly in those areas. And so that's where the "don't tread on me" thing actually came from. So rattlesnakes began to
Benjamin Franklin.
Right. It began to symbolize Great Britain and oppression.
Yep.
That's what it was. It was basically saying you're taking our civil liberties from us. So in 1751, Franklin wrote an article suggesting, like I said, sending those rattlesnakes to Great Britain because they were sending prisoners. 1754.
Which, by the way, I just love that he wanted.
I know.
You know, you think about how proper these guys were. He's basically out there discovering electricity.
Vipers.
He's like,
a brood
but I
of
do
vipers.
think we should fight back against taxation without representation with my old trick bag o' snakes.
The bag.
Oh, it's a bag of snakes. I've never heard this sound coming out of a reptile before. It's like a baby rattle, only it's poisonous. Imagine seeing a rattlesnake and hearing it for the first time. And you have no idea.
Be like, well, that's a cool animal.
What's in this box? Oh, that sounds like fun. I put it next to me lawn darts that I play out in rainstorms.
They were really pissed off about this, by the way. It had been going on for almost 30 years by the time Franklin commented on this, by the way. They had reinstituted that policy. But in 1754, Franklin actually published Join or Die, which was kind of this cartoon showing a snake depicted kind of pieced into 8 pieces, right?
Yeah.
And they were saying, look, we are separate colonies, but we are trying to unite the colonies to fight a war. This was the French and Indian War that they were talking about. They wanted the colonies to unite for control over the Ohio River, and so each one of the 8 represented a colony. So this all had big specific meaning in unifying against tyrannical government, right? And unifying the colonies, right? I associated it with the Vietnam War. I didn't know
you were little?
The whole history of it. No, now. Like when we talked about it, I'm like, I've seen that flag more with people protesting the government's involvement in Vietnam.
POW,
right? POW flag.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. So that I didn't even think slavery when it came up. So I was like, all you have to do is look online and go, Oh,
We have a
let's give you
Gadsden
that.
flag
Is it-
lighter here somewhere.
But
in the
isn't
studio.
it a Texas thing on your license plates?
Not in Texas.
No, it's not on our
South
license plates.
Carolina.
Well,
So now Brian can't be bothered to do research.
I don't know nothing. I don't know
hold on,
anything.
hold on.
Why do you do an accent?
But because
okay, vodka.
that's my defense mechanism. I become Italian. I don't know nothing.
What?
Because my first
I think
language is
there might be an option to get one on the Texas license plate, but I
Yeah.
don't think.
Okay, there might be an option.
Yeah.
Yeah, see? I told you,
But
Steven.
it's
Watch Louder with Crowder live, Monday through Thursday, 10 a.m. Eastern.